Let's give it up for Pace and the Trumpet Chicks. They will be back for a second performance towards the end of the rally. But we are going to get started here, and thank you again, everyone, for coming out to the rally finale for Governor Murphy Walk Your Talk on Climate. We have an excellent lineup of speakers, and we are going to start with just a quick moment of silence for really honoring the lives of people who are impacted by climate change and destructive weather and extreme heat and impacted by fossil fuel pollution. Thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. My name is Matt Smith. I'm the New Jersey Director for Food and Water Watch. And I'm also here representing the Empower New Jersey Coalition, which is the convener of this week-long 50-mile, 5-day walk for clean air and climate justice in New Jersey. And Empower New Jersey represents over 135 organizations across the state, ranging from environmental, social justice, faith-based organizations, all of whom have been coming together for over 4 years now to call on Governor Murphy to fulfill his commitments. When he ran for office his first term, the governor promised to transition New Jersey off of fossil fuels and onto 100% clean energy. And that promise was right. We are in a worsening climate crisis. All of us just this month have experienced some of the extreme heat that will only get worse under a future where we continue to rely on dirty, polluting fossil fuels. And much elsewhere across the world, we are seeing similar impacts, from Europe, where rivers are running dry, to the Middle East, where they're setting all-time record temperatures of 140 degrees Fahrenheit, to the wildfires in the West. And right here in New Jersey, we had the largest fire in our state's history in 50 years in the Pinelands, with a massive wildfire earlier this summer. So we know what's at stake. I don't need to tell this crowd what's at stake with the climate crisis. And that is why we've been coming together for years now, and why courageous activists walked 50 miles in this heat in the dog days of August to really amplify the long-standing call for Governor Murphy to stop the 7 fossil fuel expansion projects that are proposed or moving forward in the state. Yes. And we're here specifically in Red Bank and here in Marine Park, Red Bank, because if folks can see just across the river there, behind those trees is Governor Murphy's house. So we're here to deliver a message directly to the governor that he needs to walk his talk on climate by stopping these 7 fossil fuel projects. Hey, Governor Murphy, walk your talk on climate. Hey, Governor Murphy, walk your talk on climate.
Hey, Governor Murphy, walk your talk on climate. Hey, Governor Murphy, walk your talk on climate. Hey, Governor Murphy, walk your talk on climate. Hey, Governor Murphy, walk your talk on climate.
Thank you. So we have, again, a great lineup of speakers. We're going to be hearing from residents, community organizers, and activists who live in or near the communities where these 7 fossil fuel expansion projects are proposed. The first speaker is someone who has been a longtime leader in this struggle, so many struggles, whether it's climate change, whether it's peace and anti-war movements. This is a dear personal friend of mine and a woman who has found a way, and I've said this before, to channel the force of nature into her work. She is a tireless advocate, community organizer, and fighter for climate justice, for a livable future, and standing up for those who are most vulnerable among us. Let's give a big round of applause for Paula Rogovin.
Hi, so good to see everybody here from all the different struggles that we've been waging here in New Jersey to stop the fossil fuel projects. How many of you remember cheering in October 2020 when Governor Murphy, the same Governor Murphy, called on New Jersey Transit to pivot from a gas power plant in Kearney, an environmental justice community already overburdened by pollution. He asked them to demanded that they pivot to renewable energy microgrid. How many of you remember that? It was a great victory.
Yes.
We were cheering, we were screaming, we were thrilled, we were delighted. We had been marching, we had been signing petitions, getting community towns to pass resolutions. We worked so hard, young people, older people, people of all ages. We worked so hard to win that victory. Yes. So why is it still on our list of 7 fossil fuel projects? It shouldn't be on the list. We won, didn't we? Yes. But you know, when you win, you gotta keep an eye on them. Yes. And we did, and we found out that when they were going out to bid with something called the Request for Proposals, fancy language, RFP. It's, you know, the companies that are going to bid on it, they asked for bids for a gas power plant. Not a renewable energy microgrid, and that's lousy. That's really lousy. It stinks. Yeah, it stinks like pollution. And so we're back again. We're following them. We called on Governor Murphy. He knows that New Jersey Transit went back on their promise. We told him, and guess what he did? Nothing. He's a hypocrite. He knows that they went back on their promise. The Jersey Transit went back on their promise. He knows that. He knows it well. It's been in the newspapers. He's heard about it. He's gotten letters. He heard from healthcare workers, hundreds of healthcare workers who signed a letter about the Kearney plant and about the PVSC plant and what the pollution would do to people, particularly children. And he has done nothing. Zilch. Nothing. And so they're back on our list. It's back on our list. We have to stop the New Jersey Transit power plant. And it's not like we just want them to stop it. We have a plan, a good plan, a healthy plan, one that's really good for kids, good for all of us. And that is a renewable energy microgrid. Clean energy. It would keep us healthy instead of making us sick. So we say, Governor Murphy, keep your promise, no transit gas plant, no PVSC power plant, and none of the other 5 other fossil fuel projects. And it's so beautiful that we're working together on this. We can't do it alone, and it's not just us, it's people around the world working together to accomplish this.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Paula. And as Paula said, let's do a second chant. Governor Murphy, keep your promise, no transit gas plant. Governor Murphy, keep your promise, no transit gas plant.
Governor Murphy, keep your promise, no transit gas plant. Governor Murphy, keep your promise, no transit gas plant.
So remember that request for proposals is the fancy name is RFP. Scrap the RFP. We want clean energy. Scrap the RFP. We want clean energy. Scrap the RFP. We want clean energy.
So today marks the culmination of a week long of actions that coincided with this 50-mile, 5-day walk for climate justice. And can I just get a quick temperature check? Raise your hand if you were with us on Tuesday in Newark, New Jersey, as we canvassed and walked to the New Jersey Transit headquarters to call on New Jersey Transit to redesign that power plant and a second power plant proposed in the Ironbound, what would be the 4th gas power plant in the Ironbound. Keep your hand raised. And then the next day, on Wednesday, we walked to Woodbridge for an evening rally to stop a massive proposed power plant that, if approved, would be one of the single largest sources of air and climate pollution in the entire state. Raise your hand if you were at Woodbridge Town Hall on Wednesday night. Thank you, thank you. Thursday morning, the day after Governor Murphy announced his support for the massive, nearly $5 billion taxpayer-funded highway expansion project that would put more cars, more pollution, more traffic in already overburdened communities in Hudson County. Raise your hand if you were with us at the Turnpike Authority the next day, calling on Governor Murphy to reverse his position and to stop that unnecessary fossil fuel project. And then Friday was a virtual day. We held 2 teach-ins, one on the Williams gas pipeline and Tennessee gas pipelines, and a second on building electrification, one of the solutions to getting onto 100% clean renewable energy. Raise your hand if you attended one of those forums. And today, here we are for the culmination of our 5-day, 50-mile walk. And I want to invite up all of the walkers, whether you did a half a day, a full day, several days, or all 5 days, 50 miles. Why don't you come up to the banner and let's give these courageous, steadfast activists a huge round of applause. One of the walkers and the inspiration for this 5-day, 50-mile climate walk is another longtime climate justice fighter here in New Jersey and nationally. This person has been across the country supporting the front lines of fossil fuel resistance and the movement for a livable and just climate future, in addition to a long history of activism and organizing that dates all the way back to the Catholic left and the anti-war movement against the war in Vietnam. Let's give a huge round of applause for Ted Glick.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks a lot. And it's great to have all these walkers up here with me. I want to call out the walkers who have done multi-days of walking, at least 2 and as many as 5. And just raise your hand. Carol Gay. Carol Gay. I don't think Ruth Newstadter is here yet. She may be stuck in traffic, but she was part of 2 of our days. Very important. David Corpod. David. Maureen Carson. Mani J. Saba. Pranita Biljani. Chris Noel. And last, by no means least, Sam DeFalco. Where is Sam? So I just want to make a few comments. I do want to hear the other speakers speaking about all the other projects, so I will be brief. I've actually been part of a lot of these multi-day walks over the last 16 years. My first one was actually in New Jersey in 2006 when just 4 of us walked from up northern New Jersey down to Trenton in support of the Global Warming Solutions Act, which was one of the first, probably the first piece of legislation introduced in New Jersey that was passed. It began, unfortunately, a too slow process of making the shift away from fossil fuels. But I was part of that one, and I've been part of a bunch of others. One of the things about walks that I've learned is just like nonviolent direct action or hunger strikes, these actions push the envelope. You know, they're not ordinary things. Very few people, you know, or whatever is needed to like walk 50 miles in 5 days in like heat in the 80s, sometimes the high 80s. It was definitely something that we won't forget, those of us who did it. They're particularly, that walks are a particularly important tactic for organizations who are dedicated to changing the world towards genuine justice, peace, and protection of and respect for the natural environment, because it gets us out, frankly, into the natural environment. You know, I saw a lot of New Jersey that I've never seen before, and I've lived in New Jersey for 24 years. You get a very different view when you're walking as opposed to riding in a car or another vehicle, and obviously a plane. Walks are visibly active. I'm sure there were at least, and it could be many, many more, at least 10,000 vehicles that saw us walking with our signs and banners. There's no question there were hundreds of people who have come to the different rallies and events that we've held. We've distributed many hundreds of leaflets along the way, and we've gotten good press coverage, really very good press coverage over the course of this week. So it's had an impact. Another thing, though, that is special about a walk is it's about building community. You know, there's just something that happens naturally when you're walking with people for a cause that you believe in and that you're willing to, like, you know, almost burn your feet, you know, to support. You talk to other people just naturally as you're moving along. You know, you work together collectively to overcome difficulties. Every once in a while you have them. It also really does keep us connected to people's lives as we walk through, on the one hand, neighborhoods that are like really noisy and really don't smell very good at all, and the housing quality is not the greatest in a lot of cases. And then we walked through Homedale yesterday, which was complete opposite. You get a sense of the problems in the society when some people have too much and other people don't have enough, and that's definitely an issue we need to keep addressing. In economic inequality, and it is connected to climate change. You know, it is connected in very many ways. So just to wrap up, you know, this was a tactic, this walk. The tactics that we use have got to be determined week by week, month by month, as we're on this road of unified struggle for the changes needed. What's right at one point isn't right at another point. But one thing is very clear. Let me just finish with this. We must build upon the success of this action in a way that escalates our righteous and absolutely essential campaign for economic justice, climate justice, and a world that we can leave to our children and our grandchildren, that we can feel proud that we've done so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ted. Our next speaker, who's going to highlight one of the other 7 fossil fuel expansion projects currently proposed in the state, is a youth organizer and someone who has been working tirelessly to help engage more people in the movement, and you know, has done all of the work behind the scenes, whether it's going door to door and talking to voters about climate issues, whether it's organizing events and rallies, youth-led, bringing a critical youth perspective into this movement. Because let's be clear, young people have the most at stake when it comes to the climate crisis, and they also did the least. They're the least responsible for the position that we're in. So let's give a huge round of applause for youth climate leader Ray Watson.
Thank you, Matt. Wow, the fish smell is really something here. I just had to bring that up. It's nasty. But my name is Ray. My pronouns are they, them. I've been a youth climate organizer for almost 4 years now, and it's really honestly scary to think about that I've spent most of my high school career organizing for climate action when I should be, you know, focusing on homework and stuff like that, you know, which is kind of required to, you know, graduate high school and live in society. But I wanted to really touch on a critical issue with the climate movement right now. I really regret not being able to be here for most of the walk, but it was because I was, working. I'm a camp counselor from 7 to 4 each day, and then I went to marching band camp from 5 to 9, which I think kind of showcases the really weird balance in my life between working really hard for activism and working really hard for climate justice, while also just trying to be a normal teenager and play the clarinet and marching band, which is something I really, really love, and I love to do it. But I have spent this entire week having literally no break, because I want to do so many things. I want to make sure that we have a livable future for my generation, but I also really want to not sacrifice my future as a young person and as a student right now. I was in New Mexico this weekend for youth climate leadership training with Earth Guardians, and although I had to leave early, it was really great to see all of the young people coming out to support this. But the reality is that, quite honestly, the youth movement is getting old. I was 14 when I started, and I turned 18 in 2 months now. And I know most of you are older than me, so that may seem a little weird to you guys, but I'm about to graduate high school in a year, and that's really weird for me because I started doing this in 8th grade. And the reality is that the youth movement has really been gaining momentum for 4 years now, since the climate strike started in 2019 by Greta Thunberg, when millions of people walked into the streets and demanded climate action from their leaders, millions of high schoolers and middle schoolers and college students. But the reality is that a lot of us are getting old, and in that 4 years since we have really started to take off with the momentum in our movement, nothing has gotten done, and we're still in the same place right now, except most of us are 4 years older, and nothing has gotten done. And I really hope that by the time I'm like 30 or 40, we're still not stuck in this same place, which is why it is so important for Governor Murphy to take action now, because the younger generation is the one that is going to feel the effects of this climate crisis. But we are getting older, which means we are inching closer and closer to the time that we are going to be really affected by this crisis, and we are already seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it with immense flooding in our state. When I was in New Mexico, they had wildfires that were disproportionately caused by climate change. There were portions of the mountains that were literally just all burned down. All you could see was like the sticks of the trees, and then they had floods. They had wildfires, and then they had floods, which I think really showcases the impact that the climate crisis is having, where you literally have such an extreme heat and a drought that you get wildfires, and then you get floods that are exacerbated because the trees burned down. They were providing a blockade for the water, and since the trees burned down, the flooding got worse. And there were hundreds of thousands of people in New Mexico who had to evacuate, and being able to be there this weekend really gave me that perspective that I haven't had living in Hunterdon County for the last 7-ish years of my life. And it's really surprising to me that a fossil fuel project is being proposed in Branchburg, which is the town over from where I live in White House Station, because that is a majority white neighborhood. It is a majority wealthy neighborhood. But to think that all of the other fossil fuel projects that are being proposed and all the other fossil fuel projects that have already been built are disproportionately impacting marginalized communities, that are disproportionately impacting black and brown communities and low-income communities, because they do not have the resources to move out of those areas, and our leaders know it, and they continue to build fossil fuel infrastructure there because they know that those communities do not have the resources to fight back, because they have been stripped of their resources for the last 100, 200, 300 years, and that is why we need to keep fighting. We need to keep fighting so that we all do not face the impacts of the climate crisis, and we need to keep fighting for those communities that have been facing these impacts for years and years and years, and no one has been fighting for them. And we need to fight back, because young people are getting old, and I hate having to say it, but I feel like I'm getting old, and I feel like still nothing has been done on the climate crisis, because I started this 4 years ago, and literally no action has been taken. I feel like we've honestly gotten worse with the recent passage of the IRA, which I see so many people saying that this is a win for our movement, but the reality is that that bill includes so many buyouts for the fossil fuel industry that it's just going to benefit fossil fuels even more and harm marginalized communities even more. So we need to keep coming out. We need to not make this our last protest. We need to keep coming out, and we need to keep demanding climate action until our leaders finally listen to us, until the younger generation can stop worrying about getting old and having to deal with the climate crisis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ray. Next up, we are going to hear a song from the New Jersey Solidarity Singers of the New Jersey Industrial Union Council. And I just want to, give a huge thanks to the Solidarity Singers. They are with us for nearly every single rally, demonstration, march, sit-in, teach-in, event. They are supporting not just the climate movement, but so many other movements for human rights and social justice in New Jersey and elsewhere. So let's give a huge round of applause for the New Jersey Solidarity Singers.
Of the New Jersey Industrial Union Council. Let's not get the idea that unions oppose this. A few unions that are backwards oppose this, but we're the New Jersey Industrial Union Council, formerly known as the CIO, and we're fully in support of this. Now, we like to think you're all Solidarity Singers. We're going to sing a song that one of our members, Diane Beanie, right here, wrote, but it's to the tune of Union Maid. It has a chorus which is easy to sing. Oh, you can't stop us. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet. Oh, you can't stop us. We're fighting for our planet so we all survive. Okay, we'll start with the chorus. Here we go. Oh, you can't stop us. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet. Oh, you can't stop us. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet so we all survive. With pipelines everywhere, poison in the sea and air, we'll soon be extinct if we don't think and fight for this earth that we all share. Time to turn the tide from climate genocide with the Green New Deal and the planet heal and make our future bright. Oh, you can't stop us. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet. Come on. We're fighting for our planet. Sing it with us. Oh, you can't stop us. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet so we all survive. The Arctic's feeling heat with glaciers in retreat. Storm surge and floods keep rising higher. Drought and snowing ever drier. Disease in the farm. Higher ground is hard to find. If we don't reverse CO2, we'll only get more time. Come on! Oh, you can't stop us. We're fighting for our planet. Sing it out. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet. Oh, you can't stop us. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet so we all survive. Plastics filling up the seas. We're losing all the bees. The danger is real. We Green New Deal. Time to take responsibility. Action's what we need to save the reefs and trees. For whales and birds so we care. Fight to set things right. Oh, you can't stop us. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet. Oh, you can't stop us. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet so we all survive. One more time. Oh, you can't stop us. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet. Oh, you can't stop us. We're fighting for our planet. We're fighting for our planet so we all survive. Sounded great. Thanks for singing with us. We'll be back with more songs you can sing.
Thank you, Solidarity Singers. We'll have more music to come, but we're going to continue with our next speaker. This is someone who has been walking his climate talk with us along the walk. He is a public school teacher in Woodbridge, public school teacher in Perth Amboy, and a resident of Woodbridge, where Competitive Power Ventures is proposing to build its second massive frac gas power plant in less than 5 years. Let's give a huge welcome. Oh, and he's also a local leader with the NAACP chapter of Perth Amboy. Let's give a huge welcome to Jimmy Dabrowski.
Thank you, Matt. One more time for the Solidarity Singers. Woo! That took me back to grade school like I'm in music class. All right. I want to please have everybody give it up for yourselves because you cared enough to be out here today, especially the marchers. Newark to Red Bank, I get tired just thinking about that. Everybody, even if you didn't march, give a big round of applause for yourselves. Coming out here today, this hot Saturday. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart, really. My name is Jimmy Dabrowski. I'm a proud member of the Perth Amboy Area Branch NAACP, and I'm honored to be in this fight with you all. I'm a lifelong resident of Woodbridge Township, where I spoke this past Wednesday night at a rally outside Woodbridge Town Hall. Thanks so much again to everyone who was able to make it out there that night. It was an awesome crowd, and I'm glad to see we have another awesome crowd here with us today. If you're feeling this energy right now, make some noise. Let's get loud. So Phil can hear us over there in his little mustard-colored house. As I shared Wednesday night, I'm a proud Perth Amboy public school educator of over 17 years now. And as much as I'm enjoying my summer break, I honestly can't wait to see my amazing students again in September. I teach elementary school health and physical education, and each April for Earth Month, we learn our environmental health lessons. So who remembers what the 3 R's stand for? Reduce, reuse, recycle. I remember learning them when I was a kid, and I don't know about you, but I remember learning that reduce means to make less pollution, not more. I remember learning that reducing pollution doesn't just go for you and I at the individual level, but for all of us, including corporations and governments, in fact, especially corporations and governments who make the most pollution. I remember learning how we need to stop getting our energy from dirty fossil fuels and start using renewable, sustainable, clean energy that will not pollute the environment, that will not exacerbate the climate crisis, and that will not cause more health problems. I can't tell you how many of my students have asthma, how many I have to send to the nurse for their asthma treatment. My own 10-year-old son was also diagnosed with asthma when he was just 1 year old. And I'll never forget the night we had to rush him to the hospital in an ambulance because he could hardly breathe. Adding more air pollution is the last thing our kids need. What needs to happen is political courage, stated environmentalist and economist Inger Anderson, who serves as executive director of the United Nations Environment Program. She was referencing that sobering report from the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC report. Very alarming. If you haven't read it, please look it up. And speaking of political courage, we're proud of the municipalities that have thus far formally stood against this proposed 3rd fossil fuel power plant in Woodbridge Township alone by passing resolutions in opposition to it. So please, a big shout out to the Edison Council, the Highland Park Council, the Hoboken Council, the Perth Amboy Council, the Franklin Council, the Perth Amboy Green Team, the Franklin Environmental Commission, the Sayreville Environmental Commission, the North Brunswick Environmental Commission, the New Brunswick Environmental Commission, and the Highland Park Board of Education. As a Woodbridge resident, trust me when I say that it takes a lot of courage to stand up to the very powerful and well-connected Woodbridge Mayor John McCormick, who has been lashing out against these towns for understanding that another toxic power plant will not only hurt us in Woodbridge, but their communities also. If allowed to proceed, this proposed power plant would be one of the biggest climate polluters in the state of New Jersey. I hope we can also count on the Red Bank leadership to have the political courage to stand up for their community members against this environmental injustice. We'd also like to thank the many organizations, about 30 so far now, who have signed on to a joint letter to Governor Murphy urging him to be the environmental leader he campaigned on and stop this proposed fossil fuel power plant in Woodbridge. It should be a no-brainer for Murphy and his Department of Environmental Protection to deny the air permits the Competitive Power Ventures Corporation needs to build another polluting power plant in our overburdened environmental justice community. CPV literally needs permission from the Murphy administration to further pollute our air. And the fact that our state leaders haven't already denied them yet is a slap in the face to our future generations. I said this to our governor on Wednesday night, and I want to say it again to him right now. Maybe he'll hear me this time. Hey, Phil, you're showing your Wall Street roots on this one, man, and you really need to cut it out and do better. Our kids are too important for you to be caving to the fossil fuel lobby. Yeah. Outrageous. My NAACP Perth Amboy Area Branch President, Reverend Donna Stewart, unfortunately couldn't join us today, but she sends you all her peace and blessings. She's an amazing leader, and she and I were just down in Atlantic City last month for the NAACP's 113th National Convention, where the NAACP passed an environmental justice resolution calling for the end of all new fossil fuel exploration, extraction, and infrastructure. The NAACP is, of course, our nation's oldest and largest civil rights organization, and I strongly recommend you look into joining your local branch if you haven't already done so. Please don't hesitate to connect with me before you leave today, as the NAACP is always looking for new freedom fighters who have the conscience and the courage to speak truth to power. Because you know what? This is power. We the people right here speaking out against injustice. This is power. That was the theme of our convention down in Atlantic City. This is power. And as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reminds us, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And make no mistake, environmental justice is indeed a part of racial justice and social justice. Thank you, Ted, Ray, the other speakers who touched on that. It should come as no surprise that they're trying to put this power plant in Caseby, the least white, least affluent section of Woodbridge, and not in Colonia, the most white, most affluent section of the township, where the mayor and many of his cronies live. A mayor who was literally quoted on the CPV website saying, "I wish they could open up 5 more power plants here. I'd let them do it tomorrow because they've been such a good corporate citizen." You can't make this stuff up. I could go on and on, but as an elementary school teacher, I'd like to end with another of my favorite quotes about justice from the classic children's book, The Lorax. I think we all know it. "Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better." It's not. Thank you all so much for caring a whole awful lot. Stop the Woodbridge power plant. Stop all these dirty fossil fuel projects.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Our next speaker comes from West Milford, New Jersey, where Tennessee Gas Pipeline has proposed one of these 7 fossil fuel expansion projects. She is a community organizer and activist who is also making a foray into electoral politics. Let's give it up for Melissa Brownblauer.
Hi, everybody. Hello, climate activists. We have so much to be inspired by here and so much to do as climate leaders. My name is Melissa Brownblauer. I'm a 20-year resident and a public servant and economic development commissioner in West Milford. I'm working to build a thriving economic future for our Highlands watershed community, leveraging our natural resources, our open space, and our vast system of trails. My beautiful home is by Greenwood Lake. Our air, our water, and our climate stability are threatened by the compressor station that's being proposed to be built just 1 mile from where I live. I oppose the TGB compressor stations and the 5 other fossil fuel projects being proposed right now in 2022, when we only have 7 years till our first 2030 Energy Master Plan goal. Climate change is creating droughts and floods in places it's never happened before. Fresh water is becoming scarce, and we can't get along without it. The mighty Rhine and other critical rivers in Europe are drying up. Lake Mead near Las Vegas is way down, revealing all kinds of interesting artifacts. Now they want to put a compressor right by Monksville Reservoir, a major drinking water source where drought is also evident right now. They want to force more gas under the reservoir through 65-year-old pipes. And this is the drinking water for more than 3.5 million people in northern New Jersey. New Jersey is ground zero for climate change. This is bad for climate change, and this is bad for the communities of New Jersey. Compressor stations are dangerous and loud. They are major sources of the greenhouse gases destroying the global climate. Accidents and pressure buildup regularly release volatile, fracked gas directly into the air. The health and the well-being of Wantage residents is already impacted from the existing compressor. Expanding it is even more dangerous for the Wantage residents. The new compressor in West Milford will bring those same risks to a wilderness and watershed community that is 100% in the Highlands Preservation Zone. New York is prioritizing renewable energy and building and promoting a future based on electrification. They're making a major investment in sustainable, secure, stable sources of power that will heat, light up, and empower homes, businesses, and transportation in the future. Westchester does not need the gas from this project.
Yes.
Despite all the climate-related emergencies across the globe and here in New Jersey, our own Department of Environmental Protection is greenlighting permit after permit for these unsafe, polluting, unwanted, unnecessary compressor stations. They will be situated among residents, watersheds, and reservoirs and operate to produce climate-threatening fossil fuels for many decades to come. The DEP might issue their final approval before the end of the summer. Our Governor Murphy can intervene. He must honor his compelling and very popular climate commitments by stopping the Tennessee Gas 300 expansion projects and the other 5 fossil fuel projects being proposed in New Jersey. Building these projects is a great folly. We must invest in a clean, green, independent, and sustainable economy, not so many more decades of fracking, air and water pollution, climate change, and poor health. Natural gas has been shown to be a toxic cooking fuel. Electric stoves running on rooftop or community solar, which is a stable, fixed cost, is the future. We need to stop pumping stuff out of the ground and burning it. We know it's bad, and we know it has to be curbed. We need to start tapping the infinite free energy resource that is our sun and our wind. Public opinion matters. Our future stability matters. Our need is for stable green energy for consumers and businesses to run and ultimately secure our nation by removing our dependence on brutal foreign regimes and the oil they monopolize to fuel their tyranny. We are experiencing taxation without representation. Why do we let short-term profiteering of companies undermine our democracy and real representation? Why do our leaders kowtow to powerful special interests that are siphoning off our wealth and controlling our levers of power to put more time, money, and vital resources into the projects that are making things worse, not better? Our leaders, thank you. Our leaders have an urgent imperative to demonstrate integrity and prove their commitment to real people. We need them to ensure a stable climate and economic future for New Jersey and the entire region. Government is the only real agent for change in technology with the capacity, resources, partnerships, and influence to take on risk and research to develop future-making technology. Time and again, real economics shows its face. We need government leadership of the most sublime kind to take the long-term view and investments now that private industry cannot and will not make on its own. Government must lead. Government must partner with the private sector to bring community solar and other green electricity systems to market right now, along with the cars, transportation, renewable infrastructure, and neighborhood solar systems that will stabilize and make living affordable and peaceful. Green projects are good union jobs with a far more meaningful legacy for our families and our future. Yeah. This is the only way to stabilize energy prices, national security, and mitigate climate change all at once. Come on, leaders, up your game. Take a stand. Do the right thing. We need you now. I am astounded that these carbon-spouting projects have been rubber stamped and approved at every stage without any real meaningful gatekeeping or opposition. And yet, here we are, at the August 5th DEP public hearing. It was for a final major permit left pending for this project. I spoke, and I am here today to say I am personally, passionately, and urgently calling on the DEP Not just to reject the air permit for the Wantage facility, but to stop this project and the West Milford facility. I'm asking Governor Murphy to use his vast power to recommit to our 2030 and 2050 Master Energy Plan goals so we can meet them and make the next few decades full of hope, vision, and know-how for massive solar investment and more green electricity to drive the kind of bottom-up economic prosperity, national security, and climate stability that we all deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Melissa. So our next speaker is another one of those tireless grassroots leaders who's been in this fight for years. Who remembers the fight against the Meadowlands power plant that we won? That was a really a huge turning point for our movement. We organized really hard and got 52 municipalities to pass resolutions opposing that gas plant. Over 13 state legislators came out in opposition. And one of the turning points, and the first town and city to oppose a fossil fuel project ever in Hudson County, was Hoboken. And it was largely due to the results and the tireless work of our next speaker, who's going to talk a little bit about another fossil fuel project. Let's give it up for Liz Indoy. Yes, and Liz made the banner too.
First of all, kudos to every single person who is here today. Major kudos to all the marchers who made that sacrifice to come 50 miles here today to talk to our governor who ran on a green platform, our governor whom I'm betting most of you here today worked hard to get elected. Am I right?
That's right.
Yes. Well, here's what I have to say to Governor Murphy today. Live up to your commitments. You have just said that you support the New Jersey Turnpike expansion project. Boo! This project is wrong for so many reasons. I live in Hoboken. Most of you probably have been there. You think of it as this picturesque, overpriced, beautiful community. I have not been able to breathe the air in Hoboken this summer. It may be an overpriced town, but air pollution affects us there. It affects you here. It affects my neighbors in Jersey City, in Newark, in Secaucus, in Bayonne. All of the cities that will be adversely affected by expansion of the turnpike. We don't need more asphalt and tar. We say no, Governor Murphy. I spent many years driving on that turnpike, commuting to and from Summit, New Jersey. I know how long you can sit in traffic on that road. I know how frustrating it can be. But we don't want more of that. We want less. So I am proud to stand here with you today, and especially Ray. I say to you, keep fighting. Keep fighting, everyone. Keep strong. We will win this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Liz. So we are going to have our next song from the Solidarity Singers. We have two more quick speakers after that, and then we're going to close with a closing performance from the Trumpet Chicks. So, Solidarity Singers, if you could come back up.
We're doing Hello. You all with me? We're doing no transfer gas plant. It's called no carny gas plant. No transfer. All right. We're going to sing another song that we hope that you'll all sing with us. It's to the tune of We Shall Not Be Moved. It's called No Transit Gas Plant. We Shall Not Be Moved. And I'll sing out the lines and so that you can all sing along. Every verse ends with the same thing. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved.
And it's all the projects,
Right, it's all the projects that Empower New Jersey is fighting. First one is no transit gas plant. Here we go. No transit gas plant, we shall not be moved. No transit gas plant, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. No highway expansion. No highway expansion, we shall not be moved. No highway expansion, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. No Woodbridge gas plant. No Woodbridge gas plant, we shall not be moved. No Woodbridge gas plant, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. Wind and solar power. Wind and solar power, we shall not be moved. Wind and solar power, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. No LNG exports. No LNG exports, we shall not be moved. No LNG exports, we shall not be moved. That's like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. No more gas compressors. No more gas compressors, we shall not be moved. No more gas compressors, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. No PVSC gas plant. No PVSC gas plant, we shall not be moved. No PVSC gas plant, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. No more gas pipelines. No more gas pipelines, we shall not be moved. No more gas pipelines, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. We need a moratorium. We need a moratorium, we shall not be moved. We need a moratorium, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. 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 Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. Thank you. We'll be back in a little while. You know Larry Hamm.
Thank you, Solidarity Singers, and thank you everyone for joining in. And, you know, there's a line in that song, like a tree standing by the water, and there's a lot of power in that. There's some trees standing by the water right here. They're helping us keep shaded, literally, from the sun today. These trees are our planet's lungs. They provide the oxygen that we rely on to breathe. And it is yet another, contested issue in New Jersey that there continues to be state-funded logging of our state forests. So we're not naming that project, but I had to at least name it for us because you know, we need trees and we need to replant the global forests. But our next speaker joins us all the way down from northern New Jersey. He doesn't need an introduction. I will try to give him a short one. It'll likely be inadequate, but Larry Hamm has been on the front lines of the movements for justice, for racial justice, for economic justice, for the peace movement for decades. He is the founder and chairman of the People's Organization for Progress, one of the leading grassroots organizations here in the state of New Jersey. He's also one of the best and most brilliant orators and movement teachers that we have. So thank you so much, Larry Hamm. Let's give it up for Larry.
Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. What do we want? Environmental justice. When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Environmental justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Environmental justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Environmental justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
Thank you very much, brothers and sisters. First of all, I have to give a heartfelt thanks to those folks that walked 50 miles from Newark to Red Bank. Give them a big hand. We can't give them enough support. Having participated in a march, in a similar march, almost the anniversary. October is the anniversary when we marched 67 miles from Montclair, New Jersey to Trenton. We marched at that time to demand that the state legislature pass those bills that would help to bring about an end to police brutality in this state. And we marched from Montclair, we marched to Trenton, and when we got to Trenton, some of you were there. When we left from Montclair, some of you fighting for environmental justice were there. So it's only natural to say that the struggle against police brutality and the struggle for environmental justice is one struggle.
That's right.
It's the same struggle. In fact, all of these struggles are really the same struggle, and they're all connected. It's just that circumstance forces us, those of us who are close to certain issues, to work around those issues. And that's understandable. Right now, women all over this country are on fire because of efforts to end abortion rights, which are human rights in the United States. The struggle for reproductive rights and environmental justice is the same struggle.
That's right.
All over this country, people are involved in various struggles. And the truth of the matter, brothers and sisters, is that all of our fights, although we labor in different vineyards, we are fighting the same fight. Although we're engaged in different battles, we're fighting the same fight. And I'm here to tell you today that the People's Organization for Progress calls on Governor Murphy to stop all these fossil fuel powered plants in the state of New Jersey. It's a beautiful day out here today. Look at those clouds. Look at that sky. White clouds and blue skies and placid waterfront. It's beautiful. But the question I ask you today is, how many more beautiful days will we have? how much more time do we have? My answer to that question is that we have no more time. If you notice, from the early days of the environmental movement until today, the goalposts of how many more years we have until environmental catastrophe has been moving. Have you noticed that? Yes. It has been moving. And that goalpost is getting closer and closer and closer. The other day I saw a video that terrified me. Something I had never seen before in my 68 years on this planet. I saw a fire tornado. I saw a tornado of fire. And it wasn't just a cyclone of fire. It was a cyclone of fire with tributaries of fire attached to it. It looked almost biblical in nature. The message today is we have no more time. We must save our planet now. On the news, Ted, the other day, did you see the number of rivers across the planet Earth that have run dry? The Rhine River in Germany, rivers in the US, rivers in France. The rivers are so dry that the ships can't even come up the rivers anymore to bring the goods. In South Korea, they had the worst flooding in the history of the country. More water fell in a matter of minutes that had fallen in months in South Korea. For centuries, brothers and sisters, for centuries, we have been told in various ways that we are supposed to dominate the earth. We are supposed to dominate its resources. We are supposed to dominate its life. But I tell you now, there is no division between humanity and nature. You can't kill nature, and we can't kill ourselves. This thinking that somehow that we can do whatever we want is the height of arrogance. And this arrogance is destroying us. But it's not just arrogance. It's the fact that the extraction of fossil fuels and minerals from the earth, the dominance of natural resources, it's not just arrogance, it's because it's being driven by industries that are profit motivated. And we cannot have this discussion about what must be done with the environment. You quoted Dr. King earlier. What did Dr. King say? He said we needed a radical redistribution of power and wealth in society. What did Dr. King say? And where do we go from here, chaos or community? He said we need a radical transformation of our socioeconomic system. It's not just arrogance and greed that's killing us. It's the kind of economic system we have that's profit-driven that is killing us. And I know that's not why you asked me to speak. But I am compelled to tell it as I see it. And when you ask me to come speak, you do so at your own risk. I don't want anybody to lose their job. I don't want friendships to end. But I got to tell the truth. I got to tell the truth. We are in worse shape today than we were 60 years ago. Let me tell you, there used to be a lake in Westside Park in Newark, New Jersey, where I grew up. The lake became so polluted, they had to fill it in. I have asthma today. You know why I have asthma? Because in poor people's homes in the 50s and 60s, we had to heat our homes with coal. Literally, we had to bring the coal into our homes, put the coal in furnaces in our basements, and you could smell the gas being released by the coal. And myself and many other children suffered from asthma. I remember as a kid waiting for school buses. The blackest smoke I ever saw coming out of a vehicle came out of the buses into the air. Environmental justice is also a fight for racial justice, and we have to understand that. So we say today to the governor, but see, it's deeper than that. It's not just because people don't have a conscience or that people don't care. No. You know what? The fossil fuel industry and companies pour millions of dollars into our political system to get the outcome. We got to take money out of our political system and out of our elections. Why is it that we're struggling so hard? We're struggling so hard because they have tens of thousands of lobbyists in Congress. There's 100, this is not an exaggeration. I read this yesterday. There are almost 100 lobbyists per congressperson in Congress. And so our Congress, we elect them to go and do one thing, but something else comes out. I wanted to give my wholehearted support to the Inflation Reduction Act. And it will do something in terms of helping the environment, but it also does things to hurt the environment. It gives out more permits for these pipelines, these gas and oil pipelines. It gives out subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. It's almost like being in a house of mirrors. You all remember, like, we got Great Invention, all these things, but when I was a kid, you know, we had things like the House of Mirrors, right? And you go into the House of Mirrors, and your reflection was always bent. It was always deformed. And that's what happens. We send our Congress people to do one thing, and they do something else. And this is why. This is why we must build a movement. We stand at a crossroads today in this country. You know it, and I know it. We are seeing things now, Matt, that we have not seen before in our lifetime. We're seeing the growth of a fascist movement. Can I say that word here? Of a fascist, I don't want to upset anybody. Can I say, I don't use authoritarian. That's not specific enough. These people are not just authoritarians. Ron DeSantis is a fascist. Donald Trump is a fascist. Josh Hawley is a fascist. Ted Cruz are fascists. These are fascists, and they want to establish a fascist minority dictatorship. And you will find, when you pull back the curtain of the great and terrible Oz, that the same people who are in fact funding these environmental killing projects are in fact some of the same people that are funding this fascist movement, because they could not do it without millions of dollars. And when you dig deep and when you look and research, you'll see that these right-wing billionaires, like the Koch brothers, who are at the center. Did y'all talk about this? I don't want to be redundant. The Koch brothers, who are at the center of the fossil fuel industry, they're funding this right-wing movement in this country. So This right-wing, anti-democratic, fascist movement must be met by a people's democratic movement for justice for all in the United States of America. And that's the task that faces us today. It's a terribly responsible task. It's very difficult. People are not like salad. You throw them in the bowl and toss the salad and you get what you want. It's hard to work with people. It's hard to tear down these walls, but tear down the walls we must. We must. We don't need any more fossil fuel powered plants in Newark. We don't need them in Kearney. We don't need them in Woodbridge. We don't need them anywhere. And we want them to stop. And add to fossil fuel. I don't know about you, but I'm as opposed to nuclear power as I am to fossil fuel. So I know after walking 50 miles, you don't want to hear me drone on and on. But when given the chance to speak, I'm 68 years old, and those of you who are my peers know when we get this age, we say whatever the hell we want to say. We don't care no more. We getting our Social Security. We getting our Social Security. We don't care no more. So thank you for all that you're doing. And even if I couldn't be with you today when you kicked off the march, my daughter had a terrible accident. She broke her leg in multiple places, and I had to take her to therapy on the day that you kicked the march off, and then her grandmother died the next day, and then her mother was in a car accident, totaled her car the day after that. All this within this week, so I couldn't be with you. I really wanted to march at least part of the way with you. But you're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing, and let's stay together. Let's build this movement. I know it's hard. Those of us who were with Bernie, you know, in 16, and we were with Bernie in 20, and then things happened in 20. I know it's hard. But we fight, and we fall, but when we fall, we get up and we fight again. And we'll keep getting up until we get victory. Thank you very much. Power to the people.
Give another round of applause for Larry Hamm and the People's Organization for Progress. So we've got